Hey guys, I'm Hazard. You might know me from Subgoth Squad or El Cuco Recordings, and today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial on how to make a Witch House style Reese Bass. And I'm going to be showing two methods using NI Massive. And if you don't have NI Massive, you might still learn something from this, because I'm going to show you how I'm not going to give you a preset, I'm going to kind of show you how I approach making one. And if you're familiar with sound design, then you should be able to apply this to multiple VSTs. So, let's get into it. Okay, so for the two ways that I'm going to show you on how to make a Witch House style Reese Bass of the first one, I'm going to be using Massive. Well, I'm using Massive for both of them, but I'm going to be using this one right here. Now make sure whenever you bring up Massive, you go to File and hit New Sound, so you're working with the same, template every time when you're making a sound from scratch. So it's pretty simple. Let's start off with putting a little pattern in the background. That way you guys know what's being played. Or you can hear the changes as we're going through it, or we'll see. I just find it easier. So this is the bass sound. Pretty simple, basic, buzzy sound. So when making a Reese, I'm going to show you the easier way first, or the way that I prefer to do it. So basically on oscillator 1, you have to make sure that it's a saw wave, which is usually how it will start off from a clean, fresh, new template, and make sure the wave table position's all the way to the right, amps all the way up, intensity all the way up on spectrum, because this is going to be a very saw waved based sound. So the pitch really doesn't matter that much, considering the pitch is going to be changeable on your piano roll, however you end up doing it. But it's easier to work with. For me, I like to do it at -12 or -24, depending on how dark you're trying to get that sound. But for now, let's stay with -12. Alright, and let's just see what difference that makes already. Starting to sound similar to like a Hoover bass or something. So anyways, I'm not going to show you like a preset or anything. I'm just going to show you how to approach the sound design of making a Reese bass, or like a Witch House type Hoover bass, or whatever you want to call it. So and this particular version that I'm making right now, or the method, is the easiest. So you're going to want to bring the unison up to probably about 3 on the voices channel. And then you're going to turn pitch cutoff on. And then move this up a little bit. You can either use the mouse, or you can just click on it and then scroll up with the mouse wheel. I prefer to use the wheel, but when you're fine tuning it, you can kind of just pick wherever you're comfortable with it. But I'm going to show you in real time how this affects the sound. So let's go back down to 1. And now let's bring it up to 3. There's more playing at the same time. And then let's bring up the detuning a little bit. So when you do that, it spreads the sound out a little bit, and these 3 voices in unison are kind of mingling with each other to make it a more spread out full sound. Some people like their sounds really detuned. I like mine somewhere in this region right here. And like I said, from a new fresh template, you shouldn't have to worry about any of these numbers being different. But if they're not, all of these are going to be based on the numbers that you see here, so make sure they match up. Some people like to add more voices, like you can get heavier, louder sounds if you go up. Okay, so that's already, we're getting a very Reese sounding style sound, and that you could do a lot with that just alone. So a few things to kind of punch up the sound a little bit and give it a little bit, like, whenever you're producing, you want to have your own style or your own like signature vibe when you make it, because there's a lot of great presets out there for Reese's, and Hoovers, whatever you want to call them, and they're good. But if you really want to like make your own signature sound, which is I'm sure why you're looking for a tutorial on the sound design of it, this is how I would approach it. So yeah, let's continue with that. So in your effects tabs for massive, I like to add maybe a little bit of reverb. So you want to go like a small reverb, bring it down to like a dry, wet sound. Let's see these changes happen in action, so you actually see what's happening as well. So you can already see it takes up a little bit more space. You can change the size of it. I like the regular size, so I just have to turn the dry and wet up a little bit down. But you can change it depending on how you like your reverb sounds. I also like to add a little bit of chorus to mine to give it some movement. Maybe not this much, you probably dial back the dry wet a little bit. EQing, I prefer to leave this alone and do EQing and processing on my own with like, fruity EQ and stuff like that, whatever your EQ is. So I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to let you do most of the making it sound good parts. But as far as like styles go, there's a lot of things you can do. So let's even mess with this. Let's go to insert one and just kind of explore. I like to maybe mess with frequency shifter or sign shaper. And it still has somewhat of a Reese sound, but now it's starting to sound a little different. And then just making these little changes can really tweak it to your own signature sound, your own signature idea. Maybe not so much, but just enough to change it up a little bit. Or we can go to sign shaper. Well, in this particular case, I don't think it really helps that much, but I personally like the frequency shifter on this one. But I would mess with all of these and try these out and see what you like. Sometimes adding a phase to it can be cool, depending on what you're doing or what your sound you're going for. Let's try it. Not too bad. But this is how I want you to approach making your own sounds and like making it your own style. Just really explore. Let's maybe drop this down to -24 and see what we get. Now we're getting like a really, really dark sound. Which is really cool. And so this, if you don't have, like, if you're not using massive, but you kind of get the idea of oscillators and detuning and adding several voices, if you don't have massive, you can add these kind of effects or any other effects you wish on, like, your own mixer board and stuff. Like, I'm going to take these off and maybe try to add some on my own. Let's go to reverb. Maybe go small studio. But make sure it's just a little bit of reverb. And doing a bunch of these little things, as long as you know what you're doing, can really go a long way in making your sound unique and punchy and have a lot of clarity to it. The chorus on here isn't as friendly, but let's try it. Let's maybe just do... I mean, there's a lot of ways to mess with your sound to get what you want. But yeah, so that's it for the this method. I'm gonna go ahead and go on to the next method. Okay, so for the second method that I'm going to be teaching you, I went ahead and copied and pasted that same pattern in the background so we can hear what's going on. So, like I said, make sure whenever you pull up massive, you always hit new sound, so you're starting from a fresh template. And so what we did in the earlier one, we stuck to one oscillator, and then we messed with the voicing tab and changed the unison, added multiple oscillators basically, and instilled the detuning and, you know, spread of them. So what we're going to be doing differently this time is almost like we're manually doing them with multiple oscillators at once. And that's what I'm going to show you for the second method. So let's get started. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention with the first video, or the first segment, you want to put it in monophonic. There's reasons to go to the polyphonic, but I could touch that in another video. But if you don't want it to jump around in sounds and you're not sure why it's doing that, it could be because it's in polyphonic. So good rule of thumb is to start in monophonic unless you have a reason to put it in polyphonic, which, you know, I can explain later or another time. So anyways, let's start with oscillator 1. And like I said, I want you guys to be able to hear what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and let this play in the background so you can hear the changes as they're being made. Okay, and then let's lower this down to 12. Let's add another oscillator. Also lower this one down to 12. And let's add a third one. Why not? We'll go down to -12 with this one as well. So we can already hear that we got a thicker sound because we got multiple oscillators going now. So now what we want to do is we want them detuned with each other. So there's two ways to do that. The first way is you can manually go up or down with the pitch control, just slightly on each of them. You know, just little subtle differences like this, and it already gives the sound some movement now. Another way I like to do it, which gives you almost a little bit more control in the rate of change for the phasing. Let's put these back to normal. And then let's add an LFO to it. I prefer to go to the one that has on the bottom here. And I prefer to use different LFOs for each one. That way you have more control over what each one is doing. So for the first one, basically what this is doing is it is modulating, you know, up and down how much this pitch is going to change. So you want to do just subtle little changes like this, like we did earlier. But it's, you know, it's going to modulate a little bit. So let's see what we got. And then you can, you know, slow the rate down a little bit for both of them. So the movement isn't so fast, but you know, it's up to you how you want to do it. You can even do it for all three, but I prefer to have one that's kind of a baseline, like just stays at one solid pitch. But, you know, just for reference, I'm going to show you. And if you want to change your mind and you want to do what I do, you can right click and hit off. And just like the other one, let's mess around and try to make the sounds a little cooler. Let's add a little bit of reverb. Let's add a little bit of chorus. Let's go back to the inserts. Try a little, that sounds pretty cool. Mess with, let's go through some of these. I'm a sucker for the frequency shifter. It always just sounds so cool, depending on what kind of sound you're going for. One advantage to this, opposed to the other method where we mess with the voicing, on, if you're using massive, on the modulation board, you can isolate the phase being to one of these oscillators instead of all of them. So maybe let's go to 3. Let's drop it down to the same pitch. That's pretty cool. You can modulate this a little bit if you want, using the LFOs as well. And then, you know, just kind of mess around with it. Find how you want your thing to sound. Let's turn these pitches down and see if it sounds similar to the first method. Another cool thing about this method is you can have overtones. Like, we have both of these at -24, but we have this one still sitting at -12. Let's drop this one down as well. You can also mess around and, you know, try saw 2. Not that much different, but yeah, you know, this is pretty much it for the second method. Feel free to leave any questions or what other tutorials you guys would want to see in the comments. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I want to give a huge shout out to Venus Theory on YouTube. When I first got into producing witch house and wave type music, when I checked his videos out, he had a lot of great tutorials, and it helped me a lot, so I just want to give his channel a shout out. Also, if you have any issues with sound design and you need a little more clarity on that, in the mix, I want to shout out them as well. He has some great tutorials. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope what I showed you today helped. If you have any suggestions or questions or ideas on tutorials that you guys want to hear or see from me, let me know below in the comments, and give the video a like.